The storm came out of nowhere. Heavy snow hammered the mountain road so hard that even the headlights of Marcus Reed's old tow truck could barely cut through the white darkness. Marcus, a kind-hearted mechanic known around the small mountain town for helping stranded drivers, was on his way home when he spotted something unusual ahead, a pair of taillights flickering weakly behind a snowbank. He slowed down immediately. As he pulled closer, the shape of a car appeared, half buried in snow, the driver's door hanging open. Marcus's chest tightened. Accidents on this road could turn deadly in minutes during a storm like this. He jumped out of his truck, the freezing wind slicing across his face. Snow swirled violently around him, the kind that stung his skin and made it hard to breathe. But he didn't hesitate. He pushed forward, boots sinking into the deep snow with every step. "Hello? Is anyone here?" he shouted over the wind. A faint groan answered him. Marcus moved faster. He rounded the side of the car and saw her, a young blonde woman lying partly in the snow. Her forehead bleeding, her coat torn from the impact. She was conscious but weak, trying to push herself up before collapsing again. Hey, I've got you," Marcus said, dropping to his knees beside her. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and frightened. I can't move." "You don't have to," he assured her. "Just stay with me." He slipped one arm beneath her back and another under her legs. Lifting her gently, she winced in pain, her hand gripping the front of his green winter jacket. The cold bit into both of them, and Marcus knew they didn't have long. If she stayed out here, she'd freeze. "You're safe now," he said firmly. "I'm getting you out of this storm." She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper lost in the wind. Marcus carried her toward his truck, shielding her body from the blowing snow as best he could. Each step was slow and careful. The ice on the ground made it dangerous, but dropping her wasn't an option. When he reached the truck, he eased her into the passenger seat, brushing the snow from her hair and checking her pulse with quick, practiced movements. She was alive, but barely. "Hang on," Marcus murmured. "I'm not letting you die out here." As the storm roared around them, he slammed the door shut and ran to the driver's side. The night was far from over, and neither of them knew that this moment, this rescue, would change both of their lives forever. The snowstorm only grew worse as Marcus pulled away from the crash site. The wind slammed against the sides of the truck, rocking it slightly, but he kept one hand steady on the wheel and the other checking on the woman slumped beside him. Her breathing was shallow, her skin turning paler by the minute. "Stay with me," Marcus said, raising his voice over the roar of the storm. "We're almost there." His repair shop sat a few miles down the mountain road, an old, weather-beaten building he used as both a workplace and, in emergencies, a shelter for stranded travelers. Tonight, it was the only safe place he could take her. After what felt like an eternity, the dim yellow lights of the shop finally appeared through the swirling snow. Marcus pulled the truck into the garage, shut the doors behind him, and rushed to the passenger side. He lifted the woman, Emily, though he didn't yet know her name, and carried her inside. The garage was cold, but at least the wind couldn't reach them here. He laid her gently on a cot he kept for long nights at work. "Okay, you're safe now," he murmured again, more to reassure her than himself. He grabbed blankets from a shelf and wrapped them around her. Her forehead wound was still bleeding lightly, so he cleaned it with a steady hand, careful not to startle her fragile state. She didn't respond, only a faint twitch of her fingers showed she was still conscious. Marcus hurried to the old metal stove in the corner and struck a match. Within moments, flames licked upward, casting warm orange light across the room. He added logs, then knelt beside her again, checking her pulse. Too weak. He reached for his radio, turned the dial, and spoke into it. "Mountain Rescue. This is Reed's garage. I've got an injured female. Unconscious. Needs immediate medical attention. Do you copy?" Static. He tried again, and again. Nothing but crackling silence. The storm had knocked out every transmission line in the area. Marcus clenched his jaw. No help was coming, not tonight. He looked back at the young woman lying on the cot, her blonde hair tangled with bits of snow, her face bruised from the collision. She looked so small, so fragile in the dim firelight. "All right," he whispered to himself. determination hardening in his voice. "It's just you and me tonight. I'll keep you alive, I promise." He pulled a chair beside her and stayed close, monitoring her breathing as the storm howled outside, trapping them together in a night neither of them would ever forget. Marcus tried the radio again, adjusting the frequency, tapping the side of the device with his palm as if sheer determination could break through the storm. "Mountain rescue. Do you copy? This is Reed's garage. I need assistance. Repeat, injured civilian. Unconscious. Possible hypothermia." Only static answered him. He switched to the backup emergency channel. Nothing. The storm was swallowing every signal. Marcus exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. He had dealt with bad weather before, but this blizzard was unlike anything he'd seen in years. Even the walls of his garage trembled under the force of the wind. If he stepped outside now, he'd risk getting lost, or worse. He turned back to Emily. She lay still under the blankets, her breathing shallow but steady. A faint shiver ran through her body, and Marcus quickly tossed another log into the stove, feeding the fire until it cracked and roared a bit louder. The warmth slowly spread through the room, but it wasn't enough. He moved closer, pulling another blanket across her shoulders. "You've got to hang in there," he murmured. "Just make it through this night." Emily didn't respond. Her eyelids fluttered once but didn't open. The gash on her forehead had stopped bleeding, but the swelling worried him. Marcus grabbed a flashlight and checked her pupils, still reactive, but sluggish. "Concussion for sure," he muttered, "but at least you're still in there." The storm outside intensified, snow slamming against the metal garage door so loudly it made him flinch. The power flickered once, twice, and then steadied again. Marcus silently prayed it would hold. Losing heat tonight would be catastrophic. He returned to Emily's side, pulling up a chair. Every few minutes, he checked her pulse, her temperature, and her breathing, small signs that she was fighting to stay alive. He wrapped her cold hands in his gloved ones, warming them gently. Night dragged on slowly. The storm seemed endless, a constant reminder that they were isolated from the rest of the world. Marcus felt exhaustion creeping in, but he refused to close his eyes. "Don't worry," he whispered, almost like a vow. "I won't let anything happen to you." Emily stirred slightly, just a twitch of her fingers, but it was enough to remind Marcus that she was still fighting. Still alive. He tightened the blanket one more time and glanced at the stove, making sure the fire stayed strong. Until rescue could reach them, he was all she had. And he intended to protect her with everything he had. Hours passed. The storm outside never slowed. But inside the garage, the crackling fire provided the only warmth and the only sound besides Emily's uneven breaths. Marcus stayed beside her the entire time, fighting back fatigue, checking her vitals again and again. Then, sometime past midnight, he noticed movement. Emily's fingers twitched beneath the blanket. Her breathing shifted, still weak, but more alert. Marcus leaned forward instantly. "Hey, you with me?" he asked softly. Her eyelids fluttered, then slowly lifted. Her gaze darted around the dimly lit garage, confusion tightening her features. The unfamiliar room, the smell of engine oil, the roaring wind outside, it all overwhelmed her at once. She tried to sit up too quickly, wincing in pain. Where am I? What happened?" "Easy," Marcus said, placing a steady hand near her shoulder but not touching her unless she allowed it. "You were in an accident. I found you on the mountain road." Emily stared at him with dazed, frightened eyes. Her hand flew instinctively to her forehead, touching the bandaged wound. "Why can't I remember? I don't even." "It's okay," Marcus interrupted gently. "You're safe now. You hit your head pretty hard. Just try to breathe." She took a shaky breath, but fear still clouded her expression. "Am I alone here? Just you?" "For now, yeah," Marcus replied. "The storm knocked out all communication. I'm trying to get help, but rescue teams won't reach us until morning at the earliest." Emily swallowed, glancing around again as if searching for an escape. "I don't even know who you are." Marcus nodded, understanding completely. "My name's Marcus Reed. I'm a mechanic. This is my shop. I brought you here to keep you from freezing." Emily blinked slowly, studying him. His green winter jacket was still damp from the rescue. Soot smudged across one sleeve, But his expression was steady and sincere, something her panicked mind clung to. "You saved me," she whispered, almost as if she was realizing it for the first time. "I did what anyone should have done," Marcus said, "and I'll keep taking care of you until help arrives." Emily's breathing steadied a little. The firelight flickered across her face, softening her fear, though the uncertainty didn't disappear completely. She lowered her head onto the pillow again, exhaustion winning the battle. "Thank you," she murmured quietly. Marcus pulled the blanket a little higher around her shoulders. "Rest, I'm right here." As the wind howled outside and the storm raged on, Emily closed her eyes, not from unconsciousness this time, but because she finally felt safe enough to sleep. By early morning, the storm had eased just enough for a faint gray light to slip through the frost-covered windows of the garage. Marcus had barely slept, but he refused to leave Emily's side for more than a few minutes at a time. When she stirred again, the room was quieter, warmer, and less frightening than before. Emily blinked herself awake, her eyes adjusting to the soft glow from the stove. She seemed calmer this time, still tired, still hurting, but no longer terrified. Marcus noticed immediately. "Morning," he said, keeping his voice low and steady. Emily shifted slightly under the blanket. "Morning, I guess. Head still hurting?" "A little," she admitted, "but I can think more clearly now." Marcus nodded, relieved. "That's good. You scared me for a while." Emily hesitated, watching him carefully as if trying to piece together everything from the night before. "You said your name was Marcus, right?" "That's right. Marcus Reed, mechanic, tow truck driver, occasional storm rescuer." A small, tired smile tugged at her lips. "I'm Emily. Emily Carter." "Nice to officially meet you, Emily," he said, "though I wish the circumstances were better." Emily looked around the garage, at the tools neatly hung on the walls. The shelves cluttered with spare parts. The old radio that still hissed faintly with static. "This is your place?" "Yeah, been running it for about 10 years now. Not fancy, but it's home." "It's warm," Emily murmured. "That's more than I can say about my car." Marcus chuckled softly. "Your car didn't stand a chance against this storm. I'll check it out when things clear up. But right now, the priority is you." Emily's gaze softened. "I'm really grateful. I don't remember much about the crash. Everything happened so fast." "You slid off the road," Marcus explained. "Lost traction on the ice. Lucky I came through when I did." Emily absorbed that silently, then asked, "Was I saying anything last night? When I first woke up?" "Mostly confusion. Fear." Marcus shrugged gently. "Pretty normal, considering what you went through." She looked down at her hands, twisting the edge of the blanket nervously. "Sorry if I was difficult." "You weren't," he said immediately. "You were in shock. Anyone would be." Another pause, this one more comfortable. Emily finally looked up again, meeting his eyes with sincerity. "Thank you, Marcus. You saved my life." He simply nodded, not one to brag, just doing what needed to be done. But the truth was, as they sat across from each other in that warm little garage, both of them sensed something neither could explain, something beginning to shift. Even if neither of them realized just how deeply it would change their futures. Not long after their quiet conversation, the storm returned with a vengeance. Marcus noticed it first when the garage lights flickered again, short, sharp bursts as the wind slammed against the metal walls. A deep rumble echoed across the mountains, and snow began to whip violently against the windows, blurring everything outside into a wall of white. Emily stiffened at the sound. Is it getting worse?" Marcus stood up, scanning the ceiling and the garage door as if listening for structural cracks. "Looks like round 2. The storm wasn't done with us." Another blast of wind hit so hard that the garage door rattled on its hinges. Emily flinched, pulling the blanket closer to her chest. Marcus moved quickly, grabbing a thick wooden beam and sliding it into the floor bracket to reinforce the door. "Just in case," he said. The temperature began to drop almost immediately. Even with the stove running, the cold seeped through the walls like invisible fingers. Marcus tossed more logs into the fire, but the flames struggled to stay steady under the fluctuating airflow. Emily watched him, worry etched on her face. "Is it safe here?" "Safer than being out there. That's for sure," Marcus replied. He grabbed another blanket and placed it over her legs. We just need to keep the heat up. If the power goes out again, the stove is all we've got. Another loud crack echoed outside, followed by the sound of falling branches. Emily jumped this time, eyes widening. Marcus immediately moved closer, his tone gentle but firm. Hey, look at me, not the door. She forced her gaze up at him. You're going to be okay, Marcus said. Storms like this are loud, but they pass, and until they do, I won't let anything happen to you. Emily exhaled shakily. You keep saying that. Why are you being so kind to me? Marcus shrugged lightly. Because you needed someone. Because nobody deserves to be left alone in something like this. She held his eyes for a moment, longer than before. There was trust there now, forming slowly, replacing the fear she had when she first woke up. Another gust hit the building, but this time Emily didn't flinch as hard. Marcus pulled a chair beside her again. Try to rest. Conserving energy helps your body stay warm. You're not resting either, she said softly. I will. Just making sure everything stays stable first. Emily watched him as he checked the stove, secured the window latches, and adjusted the blankets around her shoulders. The warmth from the fire finally grew stronger, casting a soft glow over them both. Outside, the storm roared on. Inside, for the first time, Emily no longer felt alone. As the storm continued pounding the mountains, the fire inside the garage softened the cold just enough for Emily to relax her trembling hands. She leaned back against the cot, exhaustion settling over her, but her eyes remained open, watching the flames dance across the metal stove. Marcus sat nearby, sharpening a small utility knife out of habit, the rhythmic scraping sound oddly calming. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, not anymore. It felt like the kind of quiet that arises when two people finally trust each other enough not to fill the air with unnecessary words. Emily was the first to break it. Marcus, can I ask you something? He looked up immediately. Sure. If you hadn't seen my car, if you hadn't stopped, what do you think would have happened to me? Marcus didn't sugarcoat his answer. In this storm, you wouldn't have survived the night. Emily nodded, biting her lip as she stared at the blanket clutched in her hands. I thought so. There was something in her tone, something heavier than fear. Marcus noticed it. You look like you're carrying more than just the accident, he said gently. Is there something you're not telling me? Emily hesitated. Her breathing shifted again, but not from pain this time, from conflict. From deciding whether to trust him with something deeper. Finally, she spoke. I wasn't just driving to my family. She confessed quietly. I was running from someone. Marcus set the knife down, giving her his full attention. Running? She nodded. My uncle. He's not a good man. And he's been trying to force me into handling money and business deals I want nothing to do with. I told him I was done. And he didn't take it well. Last night, I left before he could stop me. Marcus processed that slowly. So the accident wasn't just bad luck. No, Emily whispered. I think he came after me. I saw headlights behind me, moving way too fast. Then everything spun and I don't remember the rest. Marcus's expression hardened. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. Emily wasn't simply injured, she was being hunted. Does he know these mountains? He asked. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. And if the storm hadn't hit, he'd probably be here already. Marcus leaned back, jaw tightening as a protective instinct surged through him. Well, he's not getting in here. Not through this storm. And not past me. Emily looked at him, the first hint of real relief softening her eyes. Why are you helping me this much? She whispered. Marcus didn't need time to think. Because you deserve to be safe. And because nobody should face danger alone. The storm growled outside. Inside, something shifted, trust deepened. And the truth drew them closer than either expected. The storm had calmed just enough for the wind to settle into a low, constant rumble. The worst of the blizzard had passed. But the mountains were still coated in a thick, unforgiving layer of ice and snow. Marcus was checking the stove when he heard it, the faint crunch of tires rolling slowly over frozen gravel. He froze. No rescue team would arrive this early. Not in these road conditions. Whoever it was, wasn't here to help. Marcus stepped toward the window, brushing away the frost with the back of his hand. Through the blur of white, he spotted headlights cutting through the remaining snow. A black SUV pulled up to the front of the garage, sleek, expensive, and completely out of place in a storm like this. His stomach tightened. "Emily," he said quietly without turning around. "I need you to stay out of sight. Right now." Fear flickered instantly across her face. "Is it him?" "I don't know." Marcus grabbed a heavy wrench, the closest thing to a weapon he had, and nodded toward the back room. "Go. Don't make a sound." Emily slipped behind the workbench and into the storage room, closing the door just enough to remain hidden. Marcus waited a beat, steadying his breath. Then, 3 hard knocks on the metal garage door. Marcus opened it only halfway, enough to see the man standing outside. He wore a dark coat, boots dusted with snow, and an expression far too calm for someone driving through a deadly storm. "Morning," the man said, voice smooth but cold. "Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for someone." Marcus didn't blink. Storm stranded a lot of folks. "Who exactly are you looking for?" "A young woman. Blonde. Mid-20s. She was driving a silver sedan." The man's eyes slid past Marcus, scanning the dim interior. "You wouldn't have seen her, would you?" Marcus kept his stance firm, blocking the doorway. "No one came through here. Roads are closed. Anyone out there last night wouldn't have made it this far." The man tilted his head slightly, as if weighing whether Marcus was lying. "You sure about that, friend?" Marcus didn't flinch. "Positive." A long silence followed. The wind moaned across the valley. The man's jaw tightened, but he forced a polite smile. "Well," he finally said, "if she shows up, you let me know." Marcus didn't respond. He simply closed the door with controlled force and slid the lock into place. Inside the storage room, Emily covered her mouth, trembling. Marcus stepped closer to her door and spoke quietly. "He's gone, for now." But the look in his eyes told another truth. He'd be back. And next time, the storm wouldn't be there to protect them. The garage stayed silent long after the black SUV disappeared down the snowy road. Marcus stood near the door, listening, really listening, to the storm, to the creaks in the metal walls, to anything that hinted the man might still be nearby. Emily remained hidden in the storage room, clutching a blanket tightly against her chest. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Marcus exhaled and called softly, "Emily, you can come out now." She stepped out cautiously, eyes wide with lingering fear. "Was that him, my uncle's man?" "Could have been," Marcus replied. "He wasn't exactly subtle." Emily hugged herself, the trembling in her hands returning. "He'll come back. He always does." Marcus met her gaze with quiet confidence. "Then we'll be ready." But the calm didn't last long. Another engine rumbled in the distance. Deep, slow, familiar. Emily's breath caught. "Marcus, that's the same SUV." Marcus grabbed his wrench again and motioned her back toward the storage room. "Go, now, don't argue." She obeyed instantly, slipping back behind the door. Marcus pushed a workbench slightly to angle the line of sight, then stood near the front door, muscles tensed. The same black SUV rolled into view, this time pulling up closer. Its headlights glaring directly into the garage windows. Snow crunched under heavy boots as the man stepped out again, but his demeanor had changed. The polite mask was gone. In its place, suspicion. He pounded on the door, harder than before. "Open up, we need to talk." Marcus opened the door just a crack, enough to speak but not enough to let the man force his way in. "I told you," Marcus said, voice steady. "No one's here." The man narrowed his eyes. "Funny, your lights are on, your truck is warm, and there are fresh tracks in the snow that don't belong to you." Marcus didn't flinch. "You see a lot of things in storms. Doesn't make them true." The man leaned closer. "If you're hiding her, you're making a big mistake. She's involved in things you don't understand." Marcus stepped forward, blocking even more of the doorway. "All I understand is you're trespassing. Roads are closed. Storm's not done. You should leave before things get worse." For a tense second, neither of them moved. The man's jaw worked in irritation, his breath forming sharp clouds in the freezing air. Marcus's grip tightened on the wrench, just in case. Finally, the stranger huffed out a cold laugh. "Suit yourself. But when she shows up, she won't be safe." He turned and walked back to the SUV. Marcus didn't breathe until the engine faded into the distance. Emily emerged from the storage room again, pale and shaken. "He knows I'm here." Marcus nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the road outside. "Maybe, but knowing and getting to you are two different things." He looked at her, really looked at her. "You're not alone anymore, Emily. Not while you're under my roof." For the first time since the accident, she believed him. By dawn, the storm had finally broken. The wind softened into nothing more than a cold breeze, and pale sunlight pushed through the fading clouds. Snow blanketed the mountains like a silent reminder of everything that had happened through the night. Marcus stepped outside, boots sinking into the fresh snow, scanning the quiet landscape for any sign of movement. For the first time in hours, the world didn't feel hostile. Emily joined him at the doorway, wrapped in 2 blankets, bruised but stronger than before. She breathed in the morning air with a trembling sigh. "I didn't think I'd live to see the sun again." "You made it," Marcus said. "You fought hard." Not long after, the distant sound of engines echoed through the valley, not the threatening growl of the black SUV, but the familiar rumble of rescue vehicles. 2 snow response trucks pushed through the drifts, bright lights flashing. Relief washed over Emily's face. Marcus helped her step forward as the medics rushed toward them. "Name?" one of them asked while checking her vitals. "Emily Carter," she answered softly. They loaded her onto a stretcher, securing her for transport. Marcus stood nearby, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, watching every movement. Emily reached out, grabbing his hand before they closed the doors. Her eyes glistened. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything, for saving me." He gave her a small, warm smile. "Just glad you're okay." The doors shut. The trucks rolled away, carrying Emily down the mountain and leaving Marcus standing alone in the quiet, snow-covered morning. 3 days passed. Marcus returned to his usual routine, fixing engines, shoveling snow, making repairs to the garage after the storm. But every so often, he caught himself glancing at the road, wondering if the black SUV would come back, or if Emily would. He didn't expect either. Then, one evening, he found an envelope slipped under his garage door. On the front, M. Reed, handwritten in elegant script. Inside was a letter. "Marcus, I'm safe now. My uncle has been taken into custody. Your courage didn't just save me. Your refusal to hand me over gave me the chance to finally speak out. I owe you more than words can express. Please come visit. I want you to meet my family, and there's something important I want to discuss with you. Emily." Folded behind the letter was a check, an amount large enough to repair his garage twice over, and a business card with her direct contact number. Marcus stared at the note for a long moment, a slow smile spreading across his face. The storm had brought them together. But what waited next felt like the beginning of something entirely new.